The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Tanya, and I'm the marketing manager over here at Struxsoft Solutions, which is now part of the Great Tech Group. So today, our technician Alex will be covering a new tool that is available in our cloud production management software, Onyx. This tool is called the Stacking Tool. It'll be available within the next few days, and during this webinar, Alex will be covering how to create your templates, how to add panels to your bundles, how to add the pallets bundles onto your trucks, how to stack by sequence versus stack by path, and finally, how to color code your panel categories. So just before we dive into this new tool, I just would like to remind everyone of a couple housekeeping items. At the end of the webinar, we'll be taking a couple of live questions. In order to be selected, please press the raise hand button on the dashboard. Just please also make sure that your mic is working correctly. If you'd prefer, you can also ask questions throughout the webinar by typing into the questions tab of the GoToWebinar dashboard. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to hand off to Alex now.
Thank you, Tanya. Welcome everybody to this week's webinar. As Tanya mentioned, we're going to be jumping into Onyx today and looking at the new tool coming out, which will allow you to stack your panels into bundles, onto pallets, and then onto your trucks. So for anybody who hasn't maybe seen Onyx yet, I encourage you to go look at some of the content that we've already posted on our YouTube page. Basically, Onyx works hand in hand with our modeling software that we have within Revit MWF. So what we do is we go and get the data from the panels that are created within the Revit software, and then we bring it into Onyx, which is our cloud-based service, which allows us to generate CNC output. And now with this new tool, we'll be able to create reports for truckloads and bundles. So first thing we're going to do is basically create some templates, which will allow us to then generate these bundles and these trucks. If we don't have this set up, unfortunately, when you do go to the stacking tool, it won't work. So in the settings on your Onyx page, you're going to go to stacking templates. You'll have bundles, pallets, trucks, and false panels. False panels can be used either for padding, so to secure any panels that have windows, doors, openings, and it can also be used to create dummy panels, to fill up some of the gaps that you may have to make sure that everything is even. So I'll show you what the bundle template would look like. I've already created mine for today, but this is where you would input all of your information. So the length, width, and height of your bundle. What's the weight that you expect to be maxed for this bundle, and then you can also set it up so that panels are either stacked flat or we can have them vertically stacked within the bundle. Just to give you a heads up, and we'll be touching on that a little bit later on, but bundles are not set in stone as far as their size. So right now I do have it set up at 120 by 72 by 60, but in the project, if you happen to have panels that are smaller or larger and don't seem to fit, we can always resize these bundles in real time directly in the stacking environment. So that's for the bundles. You got the pallets. I'll show you the trucks. We have two different types of templates that you can create. So we've got the flatbed type and we've got the step deck. So if I select step deck, we'll get a bit of the step deck representation down here. So we just got to make sure to fill up all this information for your truck, adding your overhangs if necessary, the length and height of the container. And then same as the bundle, we can set up what's the start number for when you're going to be creating these trucks. And this, again, is something that we'll be able to see later on, where we can actually change this information in real time in the stacking feature. So once these are created, you give them a name and you save them. You'll have access to them now once we get into the stacking environment. There's one more setup here that we have, which are category settings. Now, I already have mine set up. And we'll look at this a little bit later on. As Tanya mentioned at the beginning, this will help us color code basically the different categories that we have for our panels. All right, so let's go ahead and pick one of our projects. And we're going to be going to the project viewer. So anybody who's used Onyx may be already familiar with this. This is where we do our sequencing typically. The stacking is going to be in the same type of environment with this 3D viewer. So what I'm going to do right now is actually sequence some of my panels, which will allow me to stack them later on, just going based off of the sequence that I've assigned to them. So I'm going to load in the third floor. While this is loading up, just know that there are two different levels of details that you can see when you're in the 3D viewer. Right now, mine is on the fine detail. So this is down here that you get to set it up. You have fine or coarse. Fine is going to basically allow you to see all the studs and tracks. This makes it a little bit heavier when loading. And then coarse will basically give you a closed panel. So it'll just be a shell basically. So this will be done in just a few seconds. And then we're going to go ahead and start sequencing this. I won't do the entire floor, and there's a reason for this. One, to save a little bit of time today, and also to show you guys different messages that pop up when you're going to be stacking your panels when everything is not sequenced. So you go to the sequence tool. Make sure you have sequence types that are created. These you can have as many as you want, and this will allow you to basically save your sequence to a specific type, which we'll then select later on. So for this, I'm going to use this webinar sequence type. You'll notice that I'm already at number 39. So if I hit the sequence button, we'll see that some of these are green. So these are panels that I was selecting to sequence. So I can actually go through here. We'll bring this up to 40. And then I'll go ahead and select a couple more panels. Okay, just to add a bit more content for after. And now if I hit save, now I have a couple more panels that have been sequenced, and we'll jump right into the stacking environment now to use these sequence panels. So I can hit stacking. We can create new sessions. Right now I'm going to jump into this new one. We're going to load up that third floor once again. We're just going to close the fourth and second, and this will allow us to start stacking automatically into our bundles all of the panels that have been sequenced. So let's go ahead and hit the load. Now there will be about 3-4 methods that will allow you to put panels into your bundles. One of them is what we're doing now with the sequence, the stack by sequence. This is probably one of the fastest ways of getting your panels into bundles, as long as you've gone ahead and sequenced everything. If not, we'll have the stack by path, which we'll look at after, where we actually draw lines to select our panels. You have the manual way of doing it, where you'll be selecting the panels that you want, dragging them into a bundle, and we can also select the method as how they get stacked. If it's like a pyramid, if we're putting larger panels at the bottom. Okay, so now I've got this. We're going to go to the stacking feature. So again, we're in that same environment that we just were in for the sequencing. We are going to, you have add bundles, add pallets, add trucks, which we'll do in just a second. Right now, I want to focus on this stack by sequence. So I'm going to select this tool. It's going to ask me to pick a template. So this is the bundle that I had created. I'll hit set. And then what sequence type do we want to use? So I was sequencing my panels using the webinar type. I'll hit set. And now this is the message I wanted us to see. Because I didn't sequence everything in the project, it's kind of giving you a heads up that not everything will be part of the bundles, which is fine. And now what I can do is just go ahead and grab my bundles that have been created. And we'll just move them out. There's a move tool right here. Get this out of the way. and bring them outside of the project so that we can work on this. All right. So we'll see here, we've got bundle 001, 002, and 003. So it's gone and taken all the panels that I had and tried to fit them in my bundle size that I had as best as possible. So this one is, I mentioned, a very quick method of getting them inside of your bundles. We'll swing back to this in just a second. Now we're going to jump into the second method of stacking. So I'm just gonna go pick another project that I have here. This one has some exterior walls, interior walls, and some floor panels. So for this one, we're going to be using the stack by path. Now, to do this, what I'm about to do with the categories is not a necessity to use this tool, but it'll allow us to kind of see how we can filter the project in order to actually use the stack by path a bit more efficiently. So right now, everything is gray. If you go in your general tab here under preferences, there's something here called panel categories. So if I select this, as I mentioned before, I already created my categories. So I can select this, use an existing color code, and I'll have the two that I've created. So I created one called exterior interior, which will have color assigned to the different categories. And these categories are basically pulled out of MWF. So when you're modeling your project, you'll have the option to select panels and say this is an exterior, an interior, a load-bearing wall, and add these categories within the project, which then gets brought into Onyx. So I'm going to go ahead and select this one, and now we'll notice the colors that I've selected. None is for anything that doesn't have a category, which in this case, my floor panels right now do not have a category assigned to them. So if this was the first time you were creating categories, you can hit save, then that will add it to the list for the dropdown. And right now, I'm just gonna go ahead and apply this and hit close. So now we'll notice all the different colors that have been assigned to my different panels. Okay, so we've got the orange inside for those interior walls. I'm just gonna zoom out a little bit. And now to use the stack by path. You can filter directly from this filter window. So let's say I don't want my walls and I only want my exterior walls. I can uncheck everything and hit the load panel once again. Or if I go to stack by path, whoops, I just have to create my bundle first. Now I have a bundle to work with. If I hit my stack by path, it'll actually ask you what you want to use. So on level 1, I want to stack only my exterior walls. So I'll uncheck the interior, hit select, and it'll bring us to this window where we are only seeing the exterior panels. So let me zoom in here just a little bit. So next thing we're gonna do now is actually draw a polyline across the panels that we want to add to our bundle. So I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna snap to this corner. So you can draw your polyline in any direction. If you can hold shift to snap it for a straight line, or I can just connect it directly to the model. And you'll see the panels are changing color and the little number here in bracket to say that this is now number 5. So I can go through this with straight lines. So I'm just gonna add a couple panels for the bundle. I'm actually gonna put more than is required. So they're probably gonna be sticking out of the bundle, and that'll allow me to tie in the next tool that I wanna show you. So you can also draw, whichever way you want, as long as the line touches the panels, it'll add it. Once you're done, you can right click and just go hit the check mark. This is now going to grab those panels and throw them into the bundle. Now, over here, we'll notice that some of the panels are sticking out, okay, which is fine. This is why earlier I was mentioning the bundles are not set in stone. You can always change these on the fly. You have a couple ways of doing this. You can tab select, you can double click your bundle, and you'll actually get your different measurements. So you can change these manually. So I can say for my height, maybe now I need 80 inches and hit enter. So that'll bump it up. You can also just grab these lines, these little arrows here, and drag it into place. And the last method that we can also do, which is really quick, is just here in your tools that we have along the side here. There's one here called shrink or stretch to fit. So if I hit this, my bundle is actually going to go and encompass everything within it. Okay, so now I have everything with this bundle size, and then I can double click on it, have an idea of what the size is. Okay, and while we're here, I'll also just mention that all three of these windows, okay, so these are your different views. So this is your panel view here in 3D. You've got the bundle 3D view, and you've got the bundle side view. Now, if you wanted and you had multiple monitors that you're working with, you can undock this just by hitting this, which will allow you to then work on a different screen if you want. You can make this much larger and start working in it. And when you're done, you can always just hit this little box again and to send it right back into position. Or if ever you happen to close them, so if I X'd out of this by mistake or I didn't need it for a bit, you can just go back to your view tab here and say, I need my 3D view back. And it'll bring you back to the initial 3 screens. All right, so that's 2 of the methods so far. The next one I want to show you is stack by method. So we're going to go back over here. Okay, and let's go ahead and just work with the interior walls. So I'm going to load my panels, and I'll just have the interior ones. And because I didn't save those panels before that I added, that's why they're no longer part of this. So what I can actually do is, let's go back to my stacking. I'll add a second one. This is saving the original. And this is back to my original size too. So what we can do is you can select these and hold control to keep adding them, or you can cross over them. Okay, pick them, and you can hit this plus button, which will throw them directly into your bundle. We've got some shortcut keys that you can see here, which is AA, or you can just grab them and drag them into position. Okay, so right now they're going to stack in a pyramid style, but we can change that over here under preferences and set stacking method. So we have 2 choices, the pyramid, and then this one is 3 longest at the bottom and then shortest to longest. So it's going to do its best to keep the biggest panels at the bottom and then fit everything in to keep it nice and tidy. So I'm going to go ahead and do this once again. Throw these in. So if I zoom in here, now we'll notice some of the bigger panels are here at the bottom. Okay, and then they started placing some of the smaller ones on top. Now, earlier I was talking about false panels. So this could be an example here if you needed to fill this gap up. And actually here, let me just fit this bundle because it was just a little bit too small. So one thing, we can go under this window here and add this little false panel. So I can hit this box. And this is the template I create for padding. Now it's gonna be a little small, but like the bundles, I can move this into position and I can actually change the size. So if you don't have templates created, ready to go with proper sizes to kind of fit between these, you can just double click and I can say, let's say 6 inches. And this is going to be 3 feet by 8 feet. Okay, so now I have a much bigger panel, a little dummy panel basically that we can use and fit inside of here for support. So this is one method to fill the gaps, or you can always, if I remove this now, you can always move panels around. So I can move this, and by holding shift, it allows me to snap to the next level. And I can bring these, move this down. Oh, I forgot this. Okay, so you can move those around manually also. And you'll notice here, if you happen to be overlapping, if I leave it like this, your panels are going to show up in red. So it's a good indication that you may need to revise your bundle and that some panels may be overlapping other members or other objects that you may have put in the wall. Padding. This tool basically allows us, that little block that I just added before will be assigned to all your openings to kind of keep everything secure and leveled. So for the windows and doors, the pattern will get placed throughout all the panels, and it'll bump everything up a little bit. And then you can also look at adding pallets and trucks now. So with all of this created, I'm actually going to jump back into the original project that I was in before, where I had a couple more bundles created. And I'm actually just going to add a fourth one. Let's just go ahead and move this out. Oh, let's redo this. Close this. And add this. Okay, and I'm just going to add a couple panels to it. And we're going to resize it. And I actually want to move this out. Okay, and I'll create another one that's roughly the same size. This will allow us to make some nice pallets. Let me go back here, and then I'll do the same thing. I'll grab a couple panels from over here and add them and resize this. Okay, so now I'm at bundle 006. Once this is saved and we're done, I can hit this little check mark. It'll ask me to save the name. We're good, so now I add 006. So with these created, now what I can do is by hitting the add palette, it'll open the environment just like we were doing with the bundling. We'll see my palette that I created in my templates. And this big box that you're seeing here is basically the max height and the max dimensions that I would want my bundles to fit when they're on the palette. So from here, similar to what we were doing with the panels, I can actually just cross over these two bundles. I can hit the plus sign, or I can drag them over. It's going to toss them on top of my palette right here. And now we'll notice that they may be just a little bit bigger, which is okay because I can still do the shrink to fit if ever the size was just off by a little bit. And you can also manipulate your bundles the same way we've been doing with the panels and the individual panels that we can move around. So you can just sit this on top. With the palette created now, we can move on to actually adding these to our trucks. So this is also good. So I'm going to hit this check mark, or if I hit the add truck, it's actually going to prompt me if you want to save this new palette that you created. I'm going to say yes. And now I have my truck template that I created. So from here, what am I going to do is I'm going to go look for my palette here, and I'm going to add it to it. So we're going to go here, and I'm going to do add. So now the palette is on my truck. It's pointing in this direction. Maybe we don't want this. Maybe we actually want to rotate this. So other than the move tool, you have the rotate that you can use. And by holding shift, I'll make sure that it snaps every 45 degree angles. And now I can just go into this window and just make sure that it's sitting properly, a little bit more centered with the size of my container. Like this. Now I've got my pallets. So if I had multiple pallets, you can just toss them all inside of the truck. We can also add individual panels. So if you want, I can go into here and let me select a few of these, and I can drag them right into my truck. It's going to stack them on top, and then I can go ahead and grab them and do the same thing I was doing before. Kind of just move these over and lay them into position. Okay, and then I can rotate them like I did with the palette just a few seconds ago. Okay, those are actually hovering just a little bit too high. Let's fix that up. And this is just me control clicking, so I can actually select them individually like this. Okay. All right, so once this is all done, you may have, right now this is just the third floor. I would probably have a good amount of trucks created. Once this is done, we can then jump into creating reports. So similar to anybody who's used the CNC editor for generating your CNC output, if you're going to do any manipulations in the CNC editor, we always suggest you publish the work so that it saves the final version. Right now, I've been working in here. I haven't really saved the session that we're in. So in order for me to be able to generate these reports, I'll have to publish this. So under the General tab, you'll have Save Session. So it'll save everything you've done, which you can then come back in and keep working. But once everything is kind of complete and you're ready to create reports, you'll go ahead and hit this Publish button. So publish this session. Not all panels are stacked. That's fine. I'm only focusing on the bundles that I have created. Enter a name for this session. Let's call it Webinar 01. Hit OK. So my stacking is saved, and I'll be able to use this to generate some reports in just a few seconds. I just want to make sure that before we head out, there's one more tool here that we can look at, which is the renumbering of the bundles. So let me just hit that check mark, make sure that my truck is good. I'm going to call it truck 1. All right, so now I have my bundles here. So under stacking, again, these are set in your template for bundles, the way that they're going to be named, prefix, suffix, what's the starting number, how many digits you want. But once you're inside of the environment for stacking, you can always just come here and say, I want to renumber my bundles and say S-bundle, and then my start number is actually going to be 100 and hit start. So then this will change. We can edit the criterias, and then I can just go ahead. We'll notice now it says S bundle 100, 101, 102. I can actually go select the bundles that are placed on my truck. That's not a problem. And now I've changed all the names. Once I'm satisfied, I hit the check mark, and these are now switched. And because I made these changes, technically, I would want to go and publish the session once again to make sure that everything is up to date when I create my reports. I'm going to skip this for now, which I'm just going to keep the way that they were before. And we are going to head to the stacking center. Yep, that's fine. All right, so now we're in the stacking center. Anybody who's used Onyx will be familiar with these grids. Similar to when you're working in the panel manager page or the component, you have control over these columns here, so you can turn on the information that you want to see. You can sort with these. So if I go into filter here, I can filter for, maybe just the bundles that have the 250-inch length. So that's it. The manipulation for the grid stays the same. So you have bundles, pallets, and trucks. If I go to my trucks and I select it, then at the bottom here, we have another grid, which allows us to see what's within this truck ID. So under 72, I have all these panels that are part of it. I also have bundles, I believe would be 4 and 5 maybe. So I have these two, and then I have the one pallet that I created. All right. And then you can export these to CSV, just like we did in the panel manager. So any information that you see here in the grid will be pulled into the Excel file, which is why being able to control these columns can be interesting. And what we want to do now is actually generate the reports for the trucks. So I have this selected, and I can hit generate report. So you'll hit this, it'll download your file, and let me just open it up to show you guys what it would look like. Okay, so you'll have your truck report. Okay, so your constraints, the boundaries, the allowable height. You get to see basically what's been stacked within it. So here's my pallet. These are the loose panels. You have the list of all the different panels that are within your truck. Okay, you have your number. So this was truck 000. And then you also have what panels were part of this. So here's a list. I'm just going to go through this a little bit slow so you guys can see some of the information that's on here. The bundle summary. So this is in bundle 1. These are all the panels that were allocated to it. where they're from the third level. Did they have any categories on them, yes or no? The different dimensions. And then as I go through, now we'll skip to the second bundle. All right. So let me close this. So that's it. So I created the one with the truck, but you can create individual reports for just the bundles, or you could have also created the one for the pallet if you want. You can generate all or just the ones that you select. And then as I mentioned, the CSV export, it could be useful also to basically just bring the data into an Excel sheet for your personal use. So I believe that will cover most of what we have available right now with the stacking feature. So as Tanya mentioned, this is something that will be available very soon. If you guys have any questions, we'll be sticking around for just a little bit. And then if there's anything that you guys would like to see, maybe a one-on-one, feel free to reach out to the support email and we can set up a quick demonstration if you had more specific questions that needed some answering.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. So as you just mentioned, we'd like to open the floor to all of you. If you'd like to pose a question live, please raise your hand now by clicking on the hand icon in the control panel. Just please also make sure that your mic is working correctly. And just while we wait for any questions to come through, just like to remind everyone that the recording of the presentation will be sent through tomorrow. As always, please feel free to share the recording with any colleagues. And as Alex mentioned, if you'd like to set up a one-on-one demonstration or if you have any questions after the session has closed, we highly encourage you to reach out to our team. Our contact details will be provided along with the recording tomorrow. All right. It looks like we have a question, Alex.
Oh, great.
So this is from Nancy. The question is, what happens if we modify a wall after the bundle and truck layout are done and the revised wall affects the bundle? Can the bundle be easily updated?
Okay, so assuming something's done in MWF and then you have to reload the panel into Onyx, I believe that you may need to just update the bundle within the stacking environment. So let me just double check real quick. That's a good question. Personally, haven't tested that out yet. So let me just jump. Project viewer for stacking. If I did edit, I have to make an adjustment in the actual model. Okay. This was from, sorry, I didn't see the name, Nancy?
Yes, exactly, Nancy.
Okay. Nancy, if you don't mind, I believe I have your information, so I can actually send you a quick email after, because this is something that we actually haven't looked at just yet. But I can get back to you shortly today if that's reasonable.
All right, perfect. So like you mentioned, he'll get back to you as soon as possible. I'll just give it another couple of seconds to see if there's any questions that come through.
Thank you, Nancy.
All right, well, that looks like it's a wrap for today. Again, if there are any questions or if you'd like to set up a one-on-one demonstration after the webinar has ended, please feel free and don't hesitate to contact us. The recording and our contact details will be available tomorrow. Again, this new feature will be available within the next few days, so just keep an eye out. All right, we'll now be ending the webinar. I just want to say a big thank you to Alex and also thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Have a great day, everyone.